And so now we're going to get to our next session. And as we talk about people who've been very influential, both Alok and Leah have been people that I've gotten to know really well over the last couple of years. And super excited to have David leading agility at scale. So thank you both so much for being here, and the floor is yours. So David, I'm handing it over to you.
Fantastic. All right. I want to start by setting the stage here a little bit. So during my intro today, I talked about how I'm having all of these conversations with SE leaders at companies of all shapes and sizes and focus areas. And I keep hearing certain themes just coming up over and over again, regardless of whether it's a big company, small company, right? The big companies want to know what the smaller companies are doing. They're more agile. What are they trying? What innovations are they bringing to the table? Smaller companies are wondering, what are the bigger companies doing? They have so many more resources. How are they attacking these things? And so that was really the genesis for the conversation that we're going to have today. So I'm joined by two SE leaders. We have Leah McTiernan, who's the Group Vice President of Pre-Sales at Docusign. She's been there for about 12 years, scaling the SC function from growth into a mature enterprise org. She also brings with her 10 years of experience from IBM. So she's seen the entire scale from the early stages of Docusign all the way up through the giant company that is IBM. Much like that, we also have Alok with us, who's the Chief Solution Officer at Rubrik. Before that, he built an SC team from the ground up at a company that was acquired by Western Digital. He also held leadership roles at Cisco. So we've got really great perspectives that have seen every stage of SC org development over the past few years. And so what this session's all about is just talking about scale at the different types of organizations that they're at right now, how they differ, how they're the same. So no matter who's on the call, you're going to find one angle of this that resonates with you and the size of your business. So excited to jump in. Typically, when we do a session like this, we save the rapid fire stuff for the end. But to me, that's kind of the most exciting. People never get to the end of it, and they never get to the end of the rapid fire because they run out of time. I want to start us off with a rapid fire round to really get the energy going and kind of just kick things up. So what we're going to do is just going to ping pong back and forth between the two of you, and we're going to jump in with some high level questions. First thing that comes to mind, no long answers, and then we'll get into some of the meatier topics that'll dig a little bit deeper into that. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and jump straight into things. So, looking at the two different sizes of the companies, we've got DocuSign at about 3 billion, a little bit more. Alok, we've got a Rubrik at about 1 billion. So you're at very different scales here. Within your organization, and Leah, we'll start with you. What's one thing that your solutions org does really well that you think that someone at a smaller company would benefit from?
I mean, someone at a smaller company might be doing this as well, but I will say we are really great at building innovative AI solutions.
All right, I think we're going to hear that a lot today. I think it's going to be
I'm
one of
sure, I'm sure people,
the
and I didn't join, so I don't have all of the, so I apologize. I don't have all the context
No,
from the
this is
earlier
this.
conversations. I'm sure we're all doing it. Of course, I'm biased, but
Hey, no, this is
yes.
great, and what that means in different sized companies is something we'll dig into a little
Yeah,
bit later in
yeah,
some of the questions. But
definitely.
Alok, same question to you.
I'd say couldn't agree more on the using AI solutions internally. For us, I'd say that we have a very, very strong culture of growth mindset. So lot of investment, lot of just part of our muscle in terms of continuous learning and always getting better. One thing that I'll also say is that from a rubric perspective, we have in the last several years intentionally become a multi-product, multi-license company, and we are going beyond the one product or one space that we started with 12 years back. And so for us, one, it was necessity is the mother of invention. So right from the beginning, we've been very intentional about just having a growth mindset.
I think that's the big inflection point, right? For a lot of these companies, once you've had one product or one area with a lot of success, and then you say, "Oh, great, we need to grow into this new area. How do we do that, and how do we scale?" So I think that's top of mind probably for a lot of folks on the call here.
And
So
I'll just add, it's actually very consistent with DocuSign as well, going from e-signature to agreement management platform. Yeah.
absolutely. So, and I've seen that as well with the different companies that I've worked with. I mean, Oracle, obviously we sell everything under the sun, and then Salesforce moving
Right.
from CRM into the whole, platform arena and all of that. And it's very different companies from where you start and where it ends up, and how you support that changes a lot. And with that comes the evolution of new roles. So, during some of the opening sessions and things as well, we've talked about, are things converging? Are things changing? Where do things live? And so next rapid fire question, what's one role on your team that exists now that didn't exist 2 years ago? And Alok, we'll start with you this time.
Sure. I'd say just having experts in specific areas. One thing that I think that's changed over the last couple of years is customers want deep expertise quickly. The other thing that I'd say is that customers just want everything to be around outcomes, not products and features. So one thing that we've done more recently in the last couple of years is experts in specific areas and not just Rubrik product, but more in terms of market landscape experts. So helping customers de-risk their decision making is a key focus for us.
Perfect. I think we probably moved from rapid fire to medium fire, but that's perfect for this, right? So these are the kind of conversations we want to get into a little bit.
It's hard not to talk.
I know, right? But that's great, right? These are the conversations that we're sparking, and if we go a little deeper on some of these, that's perfectly fine. Because I think this is what people want to hear as well, right? So Leah, from your perspective, what's the role that you've got now that you didn't have a couple of years ago?
I'll just say it. Forward deployed engineer. And I'll add, because look, I like what you were saying, right? We're piloting this in our federal business. And I think it combines a lot of the qualities that Alok just described in terms of the expertise that this resource is going to bring to our business. And so I'll leave it at that, but it has all of that specialization and expertise, but we are calling the role forward deployed engineer.
I think sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it's getting to the outcomes faster, right? Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think if we do a word cloud on the transcript from this entire summit, I think AI is probably going to be the first thing that pops up as the largest term. And I think FDE is probably going to be number 2 on that list. I think every conversation that we have today is kind of coming back to 2 of those areas, which I find very interesting. These things have been additive to the organizations, but as we start to think about scale, what we take away is just as important as well. So next question on the rapid fire list here is what's one thing that you've stopped doing in the past year that you previously thought was a critical part of the role? And Leah, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I would say the no disco, no demo. That's old school thinking for me now. We're focused, I think, as we've been kind of already saying, right, on teaching or treating every customer engagement as a consultative engagement, showing up with a point of view on their business, their industry, their peer group, and bringing to life using a demo how we can help them. And I think someone was making the earlier comment, customers have access to everything now. So we have to be able to show a level beyond that as fast as we can.
Yeah, I think that's been a tough pill for me to swallow as well, the no disco, no demo. And that was the mantra, that was the chant for the longest time. I think I almost got it tattooed on my arm at one point. I'm really glad I didn't do that. So it's a little bit different world that we're living in. So Alok, from your perspective, what's something that you've stopped that you thought was a complete necessity before?
I'd say that as we've scaled, we don't do internal sync meetings for everything anymore. So as we scaled, what we used to do as a much smaller company was just keeping everybody informed, doing tons of internal sync meetings on a ton of different things. But as we scale and add tons and tons more people in the org, it just becomes suboptimal. So we've stopped doing internal sync meetings for everything every week.
I love that. At some point, I'd love to dig in deeper on what that actually looks like, because everyone wants less meetings. Right? People are on meetings back to back all day, every day, and everyone wants to reduce that, but it's really hard to make that decision and where that's been effective. So I'll table that for now, but that's something I'd love to learn a little bit more about, is how you actually accomplish that. All right, so this next question is a really tough one, and the one that no one really wants to think about, but it's a reality that we all live with. So your CEO comes to you and says, you're cutting your team's budget by 20%, but you're not allowed to reduce your output at all. What's the first thing that you change? And Alok, we'll start with you.
I'd say maybe it's a no Sherlock answer, but just brutal prioritization. There's a ton of different activities that happen in any size organization. I think if you just brutally prioritize, you will be able to, in many instances, actually move faster and get faster output. We're slaves to our org structure and the number of people we have.
I love that the prioritization always comes with a negative term before. It's either ruthless or brutal or whatever the case is. I don't think it has
it's a hard thing to do.
But at the same time, I totally get it, right? It comes down to the prioritization. And Leah, I know you have some thoughts in this area too. And I think your thoughts are probably along those same lines, but what's something from your perspective?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, from my perspective, assuming in some fashion that we have less capacity, we would increase our engagement dollar threshold. So again, as a strategic resource, we can't cover everything. So that would be the lever I'd pull.
All right. So it's this whole world of doing more with less. And we've seen this in the past over, the evolution of the role, but it's just accelerating so fast these days. AI is changing everything. All these new roles popping up, everyone wanting, more with less on a more accelerated basis than we've ever seen. So that concludes the rapid fire session. I want to move into things with a little more meaty context here. But this first question I do want to ask to both of you, just to give everyone on the call more of a context of what your orgs actually look like. So in talking to both of you, I know the size of the organizations are a little bit different, or size of the businesses overall a little bit different, but you've taken very different approaches to staffing and scaling that may be a surprise for some of the people on the call relative to the size of the businesses overall. So Leah, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about how your org's set up, how it's divided, the size, the ratios, those sorts of things, so that everyone on the call has some idea of kind of the breadth and scope of that organization.
So we're in North America, 155 people. Our remit includes solution consulting, value consulting, and proposal management. SEs is structured by SMB, commercial, enterprise geo, enterprise regulated industry. And then it's probably worth calling out for value consulting and proposal management. They have very robust self-serve offerings. And then the high touch motion is based on the size of the deal. Our overall, our ratios run about a 12 to 15 to 1 down market and a 2.5, 3 to 1 up market.
So you've got a really good layered approach in there, which is great. I think a lot of people on the call have been, maybe thinking about how do we do this? How do we change the ratios between the up market, the down market? What do we include the value teams in pre-sales? Do we not? How does that align? So it's interesting to hear your take on how you've done that. How much of that's, and just follow-up question there, over the past few years, how much of that is new infrastructure and how much of that has been, just kind of the way it's been for a long time now?
I mean, I think at a high macro level, the functions have stayed consistent. I would think if anything, I mean, I'll be frank, right? The org is just continuing to downsize and some of the functions that we have no longer exist. I think what we're really trying to do is look at how do we design our process and engagement for the future. What does the design of the next gen pre-sales organization look like? So also I could probably talk for another half hour about that, but I'll stop.
No,
Yeah, so it's fascinating, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like moving very quickly. And so I think that's kind of the mindset, right? We can't be doing the same things we were doing this time last year.
You've left us with some cliffhangers there, which is great, because I think we'll have some more questions that'll dig into some of those specifics. But I love that. And now, although your org looks a little bit different, so smaller company, 1 billion versus 3 billion, but talk to us about your organization and how it's set up.
I have a much larger org at a much smaller ARR. So for our solutions org, we are 400 people plus in the org globally. And this is solutions engineers, overlay experts that I mentioned that we've definitely leaned in a lot heavily there. And then it also has solutions engineers that are working with our partner ecosystem. And then of course that 400 plus people org also includes multiple different layers of leaders. But the way that our org is structured is first from a theater perspective, Americas, EMEA, APJ, and then we've gone down to segments. So think of it as majors, enterprise, mid-market, and below. Definitely segmented in terms of verticals as well. So think of it as healthcare, Fed, SLED. And then, of course, within each of those, it's based on geos. And in multiple different areas, I do have product experts. So that's how the org is structured. In terms of some of the things to solve for there is I now do have multiple solutions engineers with similar expertise. And so there's always overlap between some of these different teams, and it becomes a little inefficient because sometimes we want to follow the rules, and we'll have 12 people on a customer call, which isn't necessarily the most efficient. From a ratio perspective, I'd say globally, I'm on a 1:2 ratio. So two solutions engineers to one AE, which is pretty heavily compared to what Leah just mentioned. But within that, we've segmented, right? So of course, in our majors and enterprise, I have a higher ratio. In our mid-market, we have a lower ratio. And we started this journey almost 3.5, 4 years back. Up till 4 years back, we were actually, believe it or not, a 1:1 ratio team and company. But then over the last 4 years, we've been shaping the org a little bit. And I know this is one of the topics that's always top of mind for most SE leaders that I talk to, which is how do you decide what's the right ratio? Should it be 1:2? Should it be 1:12, as an example? And there are a couple of different approaches. One approach, of course, is just go and look at what's the capacity of the team and what the activities, and you can come up with a whole bunch of targets and milestones and productivity tracking. I actually took the other approach, which is just go and look at unit economics and what cost can a productive team bear based on the quota and attainment, and think of the productivity model from that perspective. That actually also helped in the conversations with our account executives, with sales leaders, in terms of course, everybody wants a higher ratio of solutions engineers, but just take more quota. And we found that balance in terms of where are we tracking the productivity model. So we take both a bottoms up approach, but also a tops down approach to make sure that our unit economics are right. And then we found that balance. And then every year we try and optimize and shape the team a little bit more based on where we can get productivity. I'll give you an example. We did verticalization in our healthcare business a couple of years back, and we were treating healthcare more as, think of it as enterprise in terms of SE ratios. And what we found was our productivity in our healthcare was much higher. And so you invest stronger in places where you'll get better productivity and better unit economics. So trying to triage that in a few different ways to try and come up with the right ratio there.
Can I just add to that? Because I do think it's like a best practice that we also do as well. We actually work with finance so we can understand like how much revenue we're generating per resource and what part of the business. And there is like a line where you can clearly see, like, even though we're attaching solution consultants to these deals, yeah, we're getting nowhere near the revenue that we could if we redeployed them to a different part of the business. And I do think that is I just wanted to plus one what you were saying, because we do the same thing, and I think it's had a huge impact on how we run the business. Yeah.
I think we just uncovered a great roundtable discussion topic for a future conversation. So
Yeah.
I'll make note of that. And it's interesting. I'm seeing some of the things come up in the chat, and it really is one of those like it depends conversations, right? There's so many different factors that go into the ratios as far as deal complexity and kind of what market you're in. Look, you mentioned the 12 people coming in to one deal, which I hear that and I have flashbacks to the Oracle bus that we used to bring, when we were selling across the product line. And I think most people have tried to move away from that, but it's interesting to hear kind of the different lenses on how that's evolved over time. So, Alok, you gave us a lot of insight into kind of what you've changed and kind of how that's evolved. So Leah, this question is going to be for you. When we talk about scale now, like there's all the stuff that you've already done. At this current stage, when someone says, we're looking to continue to scale your organization, for you, is that tools? Is it headcount? Is it process combination? Is it AI? Like, what does scale really mean for you at a $3 billion company right now?
Yeah. So it means a few things. I mean, I think we've gotten fairly innovative in our engagement model process, which, is, so again, it's like you could say process, tools, specialization. But we have a process that integrates Slack, Salesforce, Glean, Gong, and that's driven a ton of scale for us because it essentially puts an agentic front end on a lot of the one-off requests that we will get in from the field to automate that response. So we can kind of take those hours and shift them to higher value, more complex work. We've also launched a nearshore SE function. So we have SEs not, in North America, supporting North America business at a much lower cost point. And so that's another way.
So that's an interesting topic. So I've heard people talk about, nearshoring, offshoring, different parts of the SE roles.
Yeah.
And it's always a hot debate, right? So defensively and intrinsically, we all want to say our job cannot be outsourced. It cannot be removed from the standard SE role. And same kind of conversation comes in when we talk about automation, right? The role can't be automated. Mm-hmm. But the truth of it is, and I think we're all talking about this, is parts of it can be, right? Holistically, no. Like the core of what we do, the core of the relationship piece of it, no, that can't be moved somewhere else. It can't be, shifted into an AI. But there are a lot of the administrative things that I think can help. We can scale either through partnerships with outsourcing, offshoring, nearshoring, wherever that might be. But then also, which we move into the next topic here, is around AI and how that actually influences our organizations. I think I'm going to stop saying the elephant in the room and just start calling it the Terminator in the room, because it's always there, right? There's this AI topic. We can't get away from it. We're starting to embrace it. We're starting to see people that say they're doing AI without really understanding what that means. I've seen mandates from the top down that say we need to increase efficiency by 10%, 20% by using AI, but that doesn't come with an instruction booklet, right? It's just a mandate that comes down in a lot of cases. So, Leah, we started digging in a little bit on how you're using AI already with some of the integrations with Slack and some of the other things you're talking about. Give us a little bit more on what AI is looking like for you and your team now and kind of where you're taking things at Docusign.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of kicked off saying, right, we've built all these like different innovative solutions. But I'll maybe that we're getting a ton of scale out of, and maybe just put some data behind it because I was looking at it before this call. We were able to touch, like in the last year, 69% more ACV closed won and over 50% more ops with a much smaller team, right? So we're seeing these like significant impact to the business with a much smaller team because of what we're building. The most interesting thing we're doing right now that I'll share in partnership with Vivin, which I'm sure many people in the audience know, is that we're piloting an Agentic SC in our SMB business that's actually live joining customer calls. We spent a significant amount of time training her like an SE. She actually had to go through like pretty heavy hitting due diligence tests from our legal team, and she's passed them all with flying colors. And so just to put that in context, we touch as an SC about 5% of our SMB business today. It's just high volume, high velocity with agentic support, integrated into Salesforce, integrated into Gong, learning from every customer meeting we have. She can support 100% of those deals globally. So it's a really interesting pilot. It's very early innings. So there's been a lot of effort training. She's live joining calls, right? It's for a very specific set of, part of our business, but it could be a force multiplier if it, goes the way we hope it does.
I think that's incredible. Just the shift in the terminology, the way we talk about these things. She's already done this. She's already done that, right? We're assigning these characteristics.
I was like, yeah, do I put her on the org chart yet or not?
Well, and that's the thing. It's not going to be long before new SEs are going through a training course and there's an agent in the room that's learning along with them, right? They're hearing the feedback in the room, learning the questions that new SEs are asking, learning the product training and kind of going through that process. If you would have said, 10, 15 years ago that would be the case, people would have thought you were crazy. But this is a crazy world that we're living in. So it's just interesting to kind of hear how that's evolving. I'd love to circle back, further down once we've had this up and running for a little bit longer, maybe 6 months down the road, and see, how are customers responding to it? How is the team responding to it? Do they like the fact that this is happening for some of the more transactional business, letting them focus? Do they feel threatened? Like there's all these different emotions from customers and our internal teams that are playing into this. So it'll be interesting to monitor this as we continue to move forward. So I know we just got about 5 more minutes here. So Alok, I want to come to you with one question here. What in your team's actually changing right now? Not something that's already changed, not something that you're looking to change over the next couple of years. What's something you're doing right now to scale the team forward?
I'd say really it's specialization in specific areas. What we found is as you become multi-product, multi-license company, moving into lots of different tangential spaces even, you can't expect one person to know everything. And so definitely leaning in a lot more heavily in terms of specialization for two reasons, right? One, can't expect one person to become the subject matter expert in everything. So you just need more different personas, but also to match what our clients are looking for. They're certainly looking for deeper expertise faster, but I'm also looking to see how I can do a persona to persona match because the language is different in a lot of these different spaces. And so I'd say that we're definitely leaning in towards that this year.
All right. So I think we've got time for one more for both of you. So what I'm going to ask you is, parting advice, right? So we've got, again, people on this call from small startups where maybe they're, one of the only SEs there. Maybe they just got promoted to a leader for the first time. We've got people on the other end of the spectrum, some of the largest software companies in the world that are on here. What's one piece of advice on scaling that you would leave for each other, and then also for everyone else on the call? And Alok, we'll start with you, and then we'll wrap up there with Leah.
Sounds great. I'd say that with Leah at a much higher ARR and more efficient from an org perspective, I don't know if I have advice for Leah, but I'd say that Leah, keep paving the way as you continue to grow and pay it forward to leaders like me who want to get to your scale and efficiency and love some of the things that you're doing with Gen AI. Would love to connect more with you. And I'd say that this is top of mind for a lot of leaders here today, which is how do we continue to make our teams more effective, more efficient, and more happy? So reduce the busy work that the org does, like RFP responses or account research. I think we have the tools available now to make our SEs so much more happier in their jobs.
All right. So Leah, what are your parting words of wisdom?
Great. Yeah. No. And I'm shifting. I'm going to change my answer here a little bit. Because I think I want to really amplify what Alok was talking about in terms of the ratios earlier and like the financial modeling behind that. Because I think for me, like the most important takeaway and what we discussed is that as solution executives, pre-sales leaders, we should be using our data to show that we're not a support function, but we're a measurable growth engine for the business. And that I think as leaders is our job right now.
Wow, that was the mic drop moment for the end of this. That's spot on. So, we're coming up on the last couple of minutes here. I want us just to take a minute to say thank you both so much for doing this. I know you're both incredibly busy, running between meetings, stepping out of meetings to take these calls. What a great conversation. And, personally, I want to thank you, as part of my role here at SolutionExec, it's executive programming, coming up with the topics that we're going to be talking about. And out of this conversation, I probably have now 12 new topics that I can form roundtables about, sessions about, things that people are thirsty to hear more about. So you just made my job a lot easier personally. But this has been truly a pleasure and an honor to sit down with both of you. I'm sure there'll be more opportunities for collaboration as we move forward. I want to thank you both for your support of what we're doing here at SolutionExec, and just look forward to continued collaboration as we move things forward. So I know this is not something solution people often do, but we're going to end 2 minutes before time, which I think is probably fantastic. But with that, again, just thank you both. And James, I'll turn things back over to you.